Hey friends, it's me, Rebecca Halliday. I am the director and head teacher here at Riverbend Community School, and I'm going to try and do this as quickly as possible. I have a wonderful overview of our program for the K-2 program for you. And if you're watching this, it's because either you've already come to visit me and you're very interested in the program, or you're wondering more about the program, or you're somebody that I've met along the way or think this program could be wonderful for. I am very passionate right now about making sure we have a great cohort of kids for our September 2023 school year. And I want you just to take the time to watch this in its entirety. I'm trying to make it not very long, but this is what I would show you and tell you if you were on a tour here at Riverbend, where we're nearing the end of the school year. You might be watching this at a different time. This might not even be 2023 when you're watching this, but I ask that you watch and follow along with the information because this schooling experience could be life-changing for your child. New Brunswick public education has never been worse, and I'm here to provide a solution and alternative to what is currently happening in our public school programs right now, which is a really unsettling, scary thing. So without further ado, I'm going to share my screen with you and we are going to discuss, oh wait, I'm going to go, yes, here we go. Bum, 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 bum. So I'm going to go through my program. I already just recorded this once. This is my second time doing it because I want to try and be a little bit more, look, I'm zhuzhing my hair, you guys. Zhuzhing. And I just want to get to it and get to the point, okay? So here we go. Let's do it. Our goals are number one, talking about the devastating impact of what's going on at public school right now in New Brunswick. And this is not as a scare tactic. This is a real deal. What is happening in our public schools is no joke. Number two, how our French immersion program is impacting learning, math and reading in particular. But don't worry, I still teach French here. This is not an anti-French presentation or part of what I'm talking about, but just how I want you to know what it does at the early levels to the math and the reading, why early years is the most critical time in your child's life, what the Riverbend program's all about, financials and tuition, and then visit days, okay? So public schools in New Brunswick right now, we are dealing with two major things here: classroom composition and classroom overcrowding. So you'll see in these pictures just schools that are so full. We've got classrooms with 28 plus kids in them. We have some classrooms that have 40 kids in a class, but two teachers. 40 kids, even that's 20 kids per one teacher in any of these classroom spaces that we have available to us. Can you imagine how overwhelming and how upsetting that is from a sensory perspective, from a focus perspective, whether you have neurodiversity or ADHD or not? Trying to focus in a room and then have your needs met in any type of individualized way is a nightmare. So basically what we're seeing in these images are just teachers trying to keep a lid on so many things. We have, when I say classroom composition, what that looks like is in our classrooms, we have so many behavior issues. We have so many students who have come in who can't speak one word of English. There are just such a huge magnitude of needs that one teacher and maybe one or two EAs are expected to meet the needs of so many so many students that it's almost impossible for the teacher to focus on the teaching. They're focusing on putting fires out, they're focusing on behaviors, they're focusing on so many other things. So the students who are your average, above average, or quote unquote nice or good kids are absolutely lost in the shuffle. The inclusion program is not receiving enough funding. So our kids who have really big needs, kids on the autism spectrum, kids with significant mental health issues, they also aren't having their needs met because there's not enough trained professionals in the classroom to assist them or to put them in the classroom. If it's going to be all kids in one classroom, which is what they're advocating inclusion is, it's just really an overwhelming experience for students right now. Big, huge behaviors like fights and all that stuff are being missed. Kids are getting bullied and the teacher doesn't see it, doesn't hear it, because there's just not enough eyeballs being kept on students with these kinds of numbers. The other big thing in public classrooms right now is that we have a teacher shortage. So oftentimes there's not enough teachers for duty. So playgrounds and classrooms are, not necessarily the safest place in the world. And I've heard horror stories from my teacher friends, and my own husband is a middle school teacher. And, there are things going on that just can't be seen because there's not enough staff and too many students. So I would say public school in New Brunswick right now is probably the worst it's ever been. So if you are sort of lamenting over, well, I went to public school and I was fine, the way public school was for you is not the way public school is now. It's just incredibly broken. It's an incredibly broken system. We also have teachers who are not paid properly, so they're disengaged and they're kind of done, and it's really it's not in a good state right now. So I guess I'm just kind of looking at my notes here. So kids who have their needs met, the big behaviors, those are the only students that are really getting top priority. The other kids are absolutely being left in the dust. So if you've got a kid with dyslexia, but they're a nice kid, dysgraphia or ADHD, they're a nice kid, forget it. If you've got a kid who's an average or above average learner, also forget it. Are they going to be challenged or engaged? No way. The chances of that happening right now, the teachers are just trying to keep a lid on these classrooms and get through their days. It's not a place where children are thriving. It's not a place where they're able to do really cool, enriching things for our average or above average learners, because the bar's been lowered. And it's not a popular thing for me to say. I had a friend who found a PowerPoint from 10 years ago, and she said she would never in a million years be able to teach that content today. The kids would never be able to handle it. That's really sad. That the idea that because classrooms are so overburdened and so over full, and the needs of kids are so vast, that they've had to lower the bar, which means we're expecting the bare minimum or lower from our children. So when your kids get out in the real world or they get to high school, they're either apathetic, they're not engaged with their learning, or they can't compete in their university programs because they're coming out of a New Brunswick program that just hasn't prepared them. That is not what I want for my children, I'll tell you that much. So I could go on, but this is a huge problem, what we're seeing. The next thing is about the issue with French immersion in grade 1. Okay, so this might not be popular. I'm gonna have a little sip here. But here's the problem. I want kids to learn French in this province. I want my own children to be bilingual French speakers. And I understand the research says if they come in at the grade 1 entry point and they are fully immersed in it earlier, they will have a much better chance of being a fully bilingual speaker. I agree. However, I did late immersion and I am a fully bilingual French speaker. I kept up with it. My parents put me in French camps and did extra things. And I worked as soon as I got out of high school in jobs that allowed me to practice my French. But in grade 1, what happens when the whole day is in French? So they learn everything in French, including math, science, social studies. That takes away from their reading and their math. They are not able to dive deeply into their foundational skills in math because they're so focused on learning French, or they're not understanding some of the beginning concepts in math because they don't understand what it is in French. We also have issues. One of the biggest things, I'm going to go back to the math thing. So they really miss some basic numeracy and number sense skills that allows them to start seeing themselves as a mathematician and start seeing themselves as a math thinker. They get a little frustrated, or they're just not learning anything that's even close to what they could be learning if they were learning it in their first language, because they can't access the information because it's in French. So it's not as robust. It's not as high level because they're still just learning a brand new language. Number 2, the reading. I'm going to go on a limb and say I'm one of the best reading teachers in our community. I've been doing it forever. I know what I'm talking about when it comes to the science of reading. If you haven't heard this podcast called Sold a Story, please go read it. No time is more important than in kindergarten, grade 1, and grade 2 when it comes to reading instruction. Let me say it again. No time in a child's schooling career is more important in literacy than in kindergarten, grade 1, and grade 2. If a kid is not reading by grade 3, they're most likely going to be a struggling reader the rest of their lives. That doesn't mean they have to have dyslexia. That could also mean they were not taught to read properly. In this province and across Canada and America, we have been teaching using something called balanced literacy. If your child's coming home with something called sight words that they have to memorize, popcorn words, Leveled readers, those level A, B, C, D, E, F, G books, no good. They are switching to structured literacy and the science of reading within our Department of Education in New Brunswick starting next year. Yay. However, it's going to take a long time to get it right. You're going to be met with teachers who don't want to switch over to the science of reading. They're going to focus on just phonics. They're not going to be focusing on what are called the 5 pillars. I'm not going to nerd out on what needs to happen in order for successful reading instruction to take place, but it is massive. The training will take place and then it'll be left up to the teachers to implement it. You are talking about teachers who are already completely overwhelmed and saddled and stressed out with these huge classrooms, with not being paid enough money. The transfer over to this style of teaching reading, and this is the only way kids who are having a hard time catching on to reading will learn to read. There's no question about it. The research shows it, the science shows it, okay? So what happens is everything is focused on French, and then you get a kid who may be struggling in their English reading, but nobody's going to catch it. And then grade 3 comes along and they say, oh, actually, you know what? I think they're really having a hard time with their reading. Sorry, I did say just wait and see for grade 1. I said just wait and see for grade 2. Turns out they actually are struggling. Starting intervention with a kid in grade 3 is so much harder. If you have a kid who's already a great reader, guess what's going to happen? They are not going to dive deep into any kind of literature experience or literacy experience. They don't get to go dive deep within the content because, again, it's just focusing on French. They're just focusing on learning to read out very basic French, very basic speaking in French. So it's very early French skills. Wonderful, awesome, amazing. But what we want in that grade 1, grade 2 years, them to build their background knowledge. Kids who have tons of knowledge about the world around them because of the text they have read are such better comprehenders, writers, and thinkers. Their critical thinking skills are huge. They are able to understand so much more about what they read. But if they're not doing that throughout their day in English, they really miss out on tons of knowledge building experiences. And this is real. The same thing happens with math. They get high along in math. They haven't mastered their place value. They don't know anything about time or money because that's been very difficult for them to understand because they focus so much on French. So we get these kids who are perpetually behind. Okay, so that's my issue with grade 1 French immersion entry point. If you built those skills in their first language in grade 1 and grade 2, then they started in grade 3, they would be set up with such a better foundation. I'm not saying that it's any of these models are perfect, but this is where I really struggle with the French immersion model. And if you put your child into the English program, then we get into right now it's the streaming, right? The kids with the behavior issues, they're in English, all that stuff. So it's problematic. Nope, let's not do that. I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to go back to my presentation. Here we go. All right. So then let's get into why getting K2 right is so critical. This is basically what I spoke about, but getting the K2 years right in their reading and their math and firing up their love of learning sets them up for the rest of their school career. If they don't feel like they've had an engaging experience, if they've been doing worksheets and leveled readers and memorizing sight words and they're not really challenged in their math, they are already going to be by the grade 2 or grade 3 point, if they're already getting disengaged with their reading or their schooling, that will follow them. If they are guessers, if they have been taught ineffective reading strategies, like look at the picture and guess the words, please note those are not helpful or pedagogically accurate ways of teaching reading. When you teach a kid to memorize a word, they only know the words that they've memorized. So if you teach a kid 100 words to memorize, they know 100 words. When you teach using science of reading, you're teaching them to map letters to sounds, and that opens up thousands of words for them. When you're teaching them vocabulary starting in kindergarten, grade 1 and grade 2 about so many cool things within science and history and social studies, and they will become such better speakers, listeners, writers, all those things. But if that doesn't get set in K2, they're really disengaged with their learning. And I could go on about way more reasons why the K2 space is so important. So this is the Riverbend program. This is my favorite part. This is what we're all about. So here are the elements that we have in our program. We have outdoor education. These are our students going geocaching. We've hired a new teacher from British Columbia. She is a inquiry-based, project-based expert. She is the current VP of her school in British Columbia at her independent school. She really understands the power of independent schools. She also has her theater education background, so she puts on these beautiful performances. This is an example of the performance she put on of The Little Mermaid, as well as her French. And this is an example of the inquiry-based learning model. I'm going to go into that a little bit more. Where I come in is my direct, explicit instruction in the science of reading and mathematics. So in inquiry-based programs, they're wonderful, they're beautiful, they're student-driven, but it can be left up to the kids sort of, or there's a bit left out, I should say, when it comes to the math and literacy, because it doesn't get as explicitly taught. So we're blending both those modalities, the inquiry and project-based learning, where it's really hands-on and it's really student-driven in the afternoons, and then the math and the literacy is extremely explicit and direct, taught by Miss Reba. So this is some students doing a science of reading station. This is one of my littlest learners getting so excited about short vowels. So these are the elements of our program. This is, for an example, over here, fur trade STEM unit. This is a pumpkin unit inquiry for a kindergarten class. We do all kinds of hands-on experiments in science. And then over here in the corner is another example of the performance of The Little Mermaid. Super exciting. So I'm going to click on our website. I really, really, really would so encourage you to take a look at these videos. This explains what inquiry-based learning is all about and project-based learning. And then I get into blended, self-paced, mastery-based learning. In my other video, I went on and on and on and on and on about this. I think I will leave that out for now. But when people ask, how do I possibly do a multi-age classroom, this is the model that would knock your socks off. For a very quick demo, this is only for students at grade 1 and above. Grade 1 is even maybe a little early, but it depends on the readiness of the child. This is an example of what is called a place value unit, okay? So all of the content is pre-filmed by me. So this is an example. I'm just going to click on this game board. This is called the game board. These are all the lessons they need to get to mastery of their grade 3, 4 place value outcomes. So I'm going to click on this lesson right here. So of course, no, why is it doing that? So they just click on a lesson and they can watch these together. Hey friends, okay, let's do this. Lesson 2.2. I'm gonna no, I'm not, I don't trust it. Okay, 2.2. And I'm gonna do not disturb. Focus. Do not disturb. Yes. Okay, here we go. You're going to look for lesson 2.2 guided notes, and you're gonna have your pencil, and you're gonna be ready to rock. And if you're not, then go get your stuff because I'm diving in. Lesson 2.2. We are talking about decomposing. We've got a prefix here, D, okay, which means the opposite of composing. So let's, I don't know, this is gonna be a bummer if it does. Numbers apart. Okay, so what you're seeing here is the kids have all these copies of their own guided notes physically in front of them as they are watching the video from me. So even my struggling readers, even my younger students can do this. So they fill in the blanks here on their own guided notes. They have the sentence stems available to them. And as I'm guiding them through these notes, they fill in the blanks of the guided notes, and they love having their guided notes. So even my kiddos who really struggle with reading or writing are able to do this. So it's not just the guided notes. I'm actually doing a lesson here with physical materials. Let's do the number 90. Oh, let's just make it a new fresh number here. So let's go small. Let's start with a 6. I'm going to decompose the number 6 into 2 separate numbers that are part of the same back. So I'm doing hands-on things in the video, and you'll see here the video is only 4 minutes and 10 seconds. The intention is not for these videos to be long. I'm showing another way of decomposing right here. Did I do 24? This is 10.
This is 20.
So they're still getting me showing hands-on demonstrations. These tools are all available to them in the classroom. And then what happens is after they do this video and they have their little notes, they go back here and then they do a bunch of activities. These are hands-on games. This is me in the classroom. So what it looks like in the classroom is they watch the video very quickly. They might watch it with a pal or on their own. Then they're playing the games and the activities together. And then what they do is do what's called a mastery check, which is they come to me and I check and see how they're doing in every little small section along the way. So this isn't like by the end of a unit, if they didn't know anything along the way, oh, well, it's too bad, so sad. They really get frequent check-ins. So lessons may take, I think there's 1 or 2 days for each lesson. Then if they get 90% or higher on their mastery check, then they can move on to the next lesson. If they don't, then they can practice the activities or have support from me. So I'm always in the classroom circulating, making sure they're on track, making sure they're watching their videos, that they've got their guided notes. I have a huge checklist for making sure that they have their guided notes. That actually is all something you can see on the class website as well as their parents. So you always know what's going on. The beauty of this is if they miss school or if they didn't get the lesson or if they're stressed out, they just watch these videos with the headphones on, or there's no me in front of the classroom trying to teach to a whole group. That just doesn't exist here. The thing we will do is read books together and novels together. Those are the things that I never replace with a video. But with our math and some of our more explicit skills, especially, you see these game boards and it's so much fun. And they have like a challenge board built in where they can do extra things if they want, just to enrich their experience. So these are some cool projects that they can take part in. Then there's all these this is also like a full video of me explaining how to do the entire game board, and you get access to all this as a parent. So you're never left in the dark about what they're doing. I update them on a tracking sheet. So you can always go in and check the tracking sheet to see where they're at. And if they're a little bit behind, you're like, how come you're only on lesson 2? You're supposed to be on lesson 4 today. So you get to really understand where they're at. It is transformative. It is transformative, and students as early as grade 1 can do it. There's examples of students in real classrooms doing it on the website, a video. I really, really encourage you to go check that out. So that is a very brief explanation of our program and our model. And there's a lot more information specifically about the kindergarten program. So I'm going to go back into sharing my presentation here. But that's really the bones of what it's all about. So please go check out those videos to explain further what inquiry-based learning is and how transformative it is. It allows kids to get so excited about learning. I don't know how to explain it to you better without taking your whole afternoon with this video, but I need you to go check out what those explainer videos are on our website. So here's what you're probably really curious about is our schedule and the finances. So basically, in a nutshell, this is the schedule. We have 8:50 or 7:50 to 8:20 is outside play. 8:20 to 9 o'clock is our morning meeting and our opening routine. So we do our date and our calendar, our captains of the day. We do some movement every morning. That's yoga, dance. Sometimes we do like a HIIT workout just to really get their bodies moving in the morning. We do a mood meter check-in. How are they feeling? And we ask that they all share with us how they're really truly doing. So we get a sense of, where their current level is at. Then we do a morning message, which is practicing our choral reading skills. Then we do what's so important is a social emotional learning activity, which is we directly teach them regulation skills. We teach them about their brain. We teach them when they go offline and they're in porcupine brain, that's when they're really triggered, and what they can do to get back into their turtle brain. And we do huge lessons at the beginning of the year, all about really teaching them about their prefrontal cortex, their amygdala. Even my little students, we do a song, prefrontal cortex, amygdala, hippocampus, la, 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 my brain. And we have the most fun learning about our brains, but we also learn directly how to soothe and cope with big feelings and big emotions, and just recognizing that who we are is enough. So many kids in the public school have to mask and pretend they're somebody that they're not in order to fit in order to not feel scared, or they're scared all day, but they don't want to disappoint anyone. And here, the biggest thing that the students will say to me over and over is, I feel safe and I feel like I can be myself. And that in itself is just a game changer for a student's availability to learn. When kids are masking, when kids are scared of their environment, they cannot learn. We have a 10-to-1 student ratio here. So 10 students to 1 teacher is like, it's a dream. It's a dream come true. Then we go into our read aloud, 9 to 9:20, 9:20 to 9:35 is our read aloud response. In kindergarten, that just looks like a center or station. In grade 1 and 2, we respond to our reading. So these read alouds always come and are connected to our curriculum. Our curriculum is Ontario and British Columbia curriculum. We pick from both of those. We love them so much. They're just more modern and up to date. Our New Brunswick curriculum is quite out to date. There's a new one being rolled out in the fall, so we'll see. But the read aloud response is using sentence stems and sentence structures and having students respond to what they just read, because science tells us you need to write about what you read in order to really help deepen the comprehension. And that's what's missing in a lot of programs. And this is where the science of reading comes into place. So you need to write or discuss what you read in order to process the story or the text. So we will read nonfiction texts from social studies, from science, from history, or based on a theme like Black History Month or Women's History Month. So we make sure that they're rooted so much in content, and that's what can be missed in French immersion in grade 1 and grade 2, because you can't dive deep into the content that way because they don't understand the content that high level in French. In English, we can read really high level books they may never be able to read on their own and talk about them and write about them. And that exposure to those texts changes their life and what they know. And it exposes them to so much more vocabulary, and their academic vocabulary is a hugely important thing when it comes to their development as a critical thinker and a writer and a reader and all those things. So then we have a direct structured literacy lesson. And again, go to the website to find out what that is. It's hugely important, and it's the way all students will become readers. 9:55 to 10:20 is centers and stations. Kindergarten would be a free choice station, and then grade 1 or 2 would be a science of reading station. Then we have a full 30 minutes for recess. 10:50 to 11:20 is French. This is where the spoken French component of our program comes into place. Kids who do not want to take part in French, they would do writing workshop or centers to take that writing experience further and to further develop their handwriting, as well as sentence writing. All writing begins at the sentence level. If you can't write good sentences, you can't write at all. So we really focus on sentence writing. And then, so our students who are in French are getting taught French directly. And then our students that are in writing workshops are doing that through most like the MCP model, which I explained earlier. 11:20 to 12 is our math workshop. In kindergarten, that looks like math centers and games. And then 1 and 2, the math stations, including direct instruction with teacher time and the modern classroom model. Again, the game boards and all that good stuff. 12 to 1 is lunch. We really want them to have a relaxed lunch experience where they have 25 minutes at least of eating time and then 35 minutes of outside play. Our day goes to 3 o'clock for all students, including kindergarten, because we want them to feel that they are not rushed through their day. Many times my daughter will say, I had 7 minutes to eat my lunch and then I just didn't have a chance. Life is not meant to be that stressful. So we really prioritize just moving through our day at a regular pace. So 1 o'clock to 1:45 is our specialty: art, drama, music, gym. They kind of interchange. Gym happens twice a week, no matter what. And then art, drama, and music kind of gets rotated. 1:50 to 2:40 is our inquiry or project-based learning. So that's, again, go look at the video. That's where we would do a 6 or 8 week unit on a certain area of study, like they did an Elizabethan era thing. The last time I was talking to our new teacher, and all the students got dressed up in like Elizabethan costumes, and they prepared food from that era. And then there's a presentation every 6 or 8 weeks to the parents, which is so special and makes it very real to transfer the knowledge to be able to present it in that way. 2:40 is the end of day ceremony and reflections and jobs. End of day ceremony is they all come to the stage and we choose students of the day or scholars of the day. We do a reflection, so like a grow and a grow, what went well, what could have gone a little bit better, and then all the students have jobs. So they might be the plant waterer, the sweeper, the mopper. They organize the stuff. They all take charge of cleaning the school after school, so they can A, take pride in their space, and B, just learn some of those wonderful life skills. I have kids who like had never even picked up a garbage bag and tied it, and now they're like slinging the garbage and heading out to the dumpster. So we really value that as part of our, classroom community. And then at 3 o'clock, it's dismissal. And then if you take part in the after school program, that's from 3 to 5 p.m. And we do things like theater, outdoor education, and crafts. And then the next thing is the financials. So here, if you want to pause it, is the financial snapshot. It's pretty self-explanatory. We have plan A, plan B, and part-time. The plan A goes all the way to 5 o'clock p.m. Plan B is till 3 o'clock, and part-time is until 1 p.m. So these are the different price points. We do a 12-month payment plan for all of these plans because it allows the monthly payment to be more affordable. There is no school in July and August. You still pay for those months, although school is not in place or in session. There is another option we are trying out this year, which is if you want to pay $650 per month for plan A, plan B, it's not available for part-time. You can take part in our fundraising initiative. So you fundraise the remaining balance, either the 200 or the 100 remaining balance every month, with things like we have t-shirts and mugs and some programs we have available here, or you can come up with your own cool fundraising idea on behalf of Riverbend. So you'll be more likely to say, well, I'm fundraising for Riverbend School. We're doing this, here you go. Versus trying to fundraise for something for yourself personally. And then that offsets the cost. It is required for you to pay monthly to do the fundraising option. You can't just pay at the end of the year. And if you miss your fundraising payments more than for 1 month, you would be asked to leave the program. So it's something we're trying out and seeing how it goes, just to try and make it more accessible. If I could offer this program for half the price, believe me, I would. I understand these are tough times, but what I will say about that is I'm just trying to, there we go. The cost of your child going to school and hating it, going to school and not learning to read, going to school and not learning to do math, going to school and feeling scared and overwhelmed, the true cost of that is immeasurable. The way school is happening right now is so detrimental for so many kids. For some kids, it's not. Okay, I am not anti-public school, but I'm pretty devastated about the status of schools as they are right now, when I'm filming this video. So the cost of that is wild. I know paying for school seems bonkers. Many people will say, well, I went to public school and it was fine. Public school is not the same as when we went to school. It's just not, for all the reasons I mentioned earlier and more. So this investment could last your child the rest of their life. So this school goes all the way up to grade 8. I am continuing to find ways to make it more affordable, to lower costs when possible. I have not increased my tuition in 10 years. It's one of the lowest costs for private school, independent school. Also, it's not there are other private schools that exist, but they still have large classroom sizes. They still have 20 kids in a classroom. This 10-to-1 ratio is pretty much unheard of. So yeah, there's just a lot of pros and bonuses and wonderful things about being here. So what this brings me to is what we are trying to do right now is get a visit day for all the kiddos in K-2 that would like to come and test drive a full day. So you might be seeing this at another time. For right now, before the school year is out, we'd like to have all the students who are even possibly interested in the program come and try it out for the day. Visit, hang out. We will do the schedule as I showed you before, just as it is there, to do a mock trial of the day. There's no cost. And then you can see for yourself what the program's all about. They can check it out. They can be here and just see if it's even something possible for your family. Your child may turn out to be a different kiddo because you did this in their early years. And I can't say enough about what we're doing here. I can't say enough about small classrooms, small schools. The students that we have here currently, there's 15 students here. They're the dreamiest, kindest. We don't accept kids with big, significant disruptive behaviors. Do I think they deserve a place in all classrooms? Absolutely. We just are not equipped. The one thing we are is a very small staff. So we don't have the A, training and expertise, and B, staff to provide any kind of one-on-one support for a child who has any kind of behavioral or emotional or cognitive needs. So you need to know that that if your child is somebody who struggles in that way, this is not the right program for them. Having said that, this is a very zen, very calm learning environment. So if that's something you want for your child, you want them to experience outdoor education, you want them to experience being excited and hungry to learn and learn to read in the right way and learn those math foundations that I keep going on and on about when they need to, which is the early years, then come and visit. So what we do is send me a message right away. You can email me info@riverbendschool.ca or send me a message through Facebook or Instagram, a direct message, and I will get back to you right away with a time for us to get together to have one of our little visit days with enough students together that it's not just one student. It's a group of them, so they would kind of see how they vibe with each other, all that good stuff. All right. So thank you for listening. I know it's been a long presentation, but this is what we would talk about if you came for a visit. So this saves all that information. So when you come here, you just get to see the space and make your decision that way. So just consider investing in your kiddo in this way. I know it seems like a huge thing and it seems different, but in so many other provinces, going to going to an independent school is absolutely the norm. In Ontario, in Quebec, in Alberta, independent school is just, and private school is just something a huge majority of the people do. Now, many of their schools are funded by their government. You can be assured that's not happening here, which is very devastating. However, it is about as affordable as you're ever going to find. So reach out. Thank you for your time. And I even appreciate you considering doing this for your child. It could be a total game changer for them. Okay, bye.